Hutchison.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on what I consider as a very, very important private members' bill, the Compulsory Assessment and Treatment Amendment Bill. And I want to thank also the Honourable Luamanu Winnie-Laban for introducing this bill and acknowledge the extensive work and effort that she has put into it. And I do say from the depths of my heart that I admire enormously the contribution that Winnie-Laban has made to this Parliament, her sincerity, her intelligence, and the vast experience that she has in this field through a long history of practicing as a family counsellor. And while I absolutely agree with the sentiment behind this bill, and the government fully supports the underlying principle of this amending bill, which is to strengthen family and whānau involvement and support when a family member is assessed or treated, we will not be supporting it because we do believe that the current legislation is actually quite sufficient, and I will go into detail, and I wish to go into detail as to why, and I hope you'll listen. Firstly, I have personally thought a lot about this bill and done my best to consult widely and discuss it with others, including the current Mental Health Commissioner. And secondly, that we do indeed consider that the existing 1992 Act, as amended by the 2000 amendments, along with Section 130, provide the appropriate framework and fulfil the requirements of this bill. The Amendment Act in 2000 was one of the first bills that I personally was involved in when I came into this Parliament. And I do know that a huge amount of work was put into that, and in my view it was one of the very worthwhile pieces of work that the Labour government did, ably assisted by Her Majesty's most loyal opposition at the time. Section 7A of the Amendment Act provide that the medical practitioner or responsible clinician must consult family or whānau of the patient unless consultation is not reasonably practicable or is not in the best interests of the patient or proposed patients. And I must say, Mr. Speaker, a huge amount of effort has been put into the work around what is not reasonably practicable or is in the best interests of the patient. And secondly, the practitioner must consult with the patient or proposed patient with regards to the best interests issue. Paramount and fundamental to this legislation are the concerns, well-being and safety of the patient. Inherently, there has to be a balance between best clinical practice, patient and relatives' rights, and ultimate patient well-being. It's fundamental to point out that Section 130 of the 1992 Act allows the Director-General to promulgate standards from time to time. And these include guidelines for the purposes of this Act and standards of care and treatment of patients. The guidelines and standards have had a huge amount of consultation and work, as have the standards. That should not be underestimated. The problems I see with this current amendment is that, if anything, on balance, it's neither necessary and it could erode patients' rights where they have already been extremely well protected. Closely aligned to the original Act is the Privacy Code 1994 and the Code of Health and Disability Consumers' Rights, both which have had enormous consultation and have been worked up over a period of time. When the current Section 7A amendment was put into place, submitters included the Privacy Commission, the Family Law Section of the New Zealand Law Society, the Principal Family Court Judge, the Mental Health Foundation, the Mental Health Commission, and the Royal Australian New Zealand College of Psychiatrists, and many, many others. Further to this, The Health and Disability Services General Standards and various core standards that give effect to the general standard were promulgated by the Director General of Health in 2008, as recently as 2008. And these revised standards were the culmination of extensive collaboration with many groups, consumers, providers, government and non-governmental agencies and the ministry, that took place over a 3-year period. They were extremely well thought out. And in my view, these existing standards satisfactorily accommodate the amendments that do occur in this current bill. There is already an existing right to a second opinion that is expressed in the 2000 Amendment Act clearly. And so, Mr. Speaker, I sincerely believe that the current legislative framework is appropriate and that it does not add anything practical to what is already in law. What is fundamentally important, however, is the way the current law is put into practice. And again, in my view, this depends on the proactive vigilance of clinician to practice up to the standards and guidelines that are already there. Clinical reality requires that each patient and their family and whānau are treated according to their unique circumstances, and it is impossible to accommodate this entirely by further legislation. Sometimes emergency situations will not allow a second opinion before a patient's life is put into danger. Clearly, sometimes it's totally appropriate that family and whānau are not directly involved, for example, in cases of incest or violent abuse within a family that's repeated and where direct harm could indeed occur to the patient. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to once again sincerely thank the Honourable Lua Manu Vau, Winnie Laban, for introducing this bill, but I personally sincerely believe the current legislation provides very well thought out and balanced protections, and it would be inappropriate to introduce these further amendments. If anything, what really is needed is constant revision of the best practice guidelines between the College of Psychiatrists, families, whānau and consumers and the Mental Health Commission. These would, in my view, be the most useful approach.